What's going on? What is going on? We are back with another Purple Pants play-by-play covering the NBA Draft 24. I'm joined by the baby boy who wasn't drafted. He ain't make the G League, and I'm not sure if he was on the Summer League, but you definitely seen him on the Circle Season 2. Jack Atkins was popping.
Cut a lot of unnecessary slander there. I still got my eyes on the league. I got a game tonight, so maybe some scouts will be there. But no, it's good to be back. We had so much fun covering the WNBA last episode. We had to get together and cover the NBA and the draft, which is one of my favorite parts of the whole season. So I'm excited, Brice.
Yeah, me as well. Before even the Purple Pants play-by-play was a thing, I think you remember maybe started like 5 years ago when the draft would come out. I would always like to my stories, I would give like the Bryce Isaiah picks of the rookies that I lust over or that I'm excited to see. But the draft hasn't been as exciting to me from 4 years ago since Melo got drafted, and I've just been rocking out with my guy Melo on the Charlotte Hornets. Shout out to my Charlotte Hornets hats. But yeah, I'm super excited for our draft picks. We were supposed to do this before the draft, but life was life, and so Jack and I are here this week. Will you explain this process, Jack?
Yeah, well, so I guess we were thinking about doing it before the draft, but honestly, I don't think it might work even better to do it after the draft. Now that everyone's found a home, there's different storylines that develop during the draft. People get picked earlier than you might think. People slip for different reasons, and now the summer league started yesterday too. So we're starting to see this talent, really on display. So I think it's nice. There's more stories that have started to develop, I feel like, than if we had covered this 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely. So Jack has picked 5 rookies. I have picked 5 rookies, and we're gonna present them to the posse. And of course, we're always curious to know to our listeners, to the posse, let us know in the YouTube comments or tweet us who are your picks and what you think about some of our picks. So we won't waste too much time. We can get into our first pick, which happens to be my pick. And it is Bronny James. LeBron James's son was the 55th overall draft pick, and he was drafted to the Lakers. Now, mind you, I feel like we all know who LeBron is. I feel like I follow LeBron and his family. Bronny isn't my favorite son. I'm curious to know, Jack, who who
Damn.
who is my well, I love Bronny, but who is my favorite son of LeBron James's children?
If it's not Bronny, it's got to be Brice.
I mean, obviously is Brice. And so I find Bronny so interesting, right? Like he's the 55th pick. Obviously, he is on the team with his dad. This is the first father-son duo the NBA has ever seen, and I think it's so dope. I know a couple of years ago, LeBron James had said that he was going to. Everyone kept asking him, like, "Are you going to retire? Like, what's going on, Bron?" And he had said he wanted to wait until his son was eligible, so that they could play on the same team. And fast forward 4 years, here we are. And I do know that LeBron just with his contract, he just extended for 2 more years. And I believe in that second year, I want to say Brice will be eligible for the draft. And that would be crazy if because I think he's a senior now.
Oh, yeah. So I guess after the 2 years.
After the 2 years,
Yeah.
if he were to extend for another year, would potentially be on the same team as his son. Now,
That would be crazy.
in preparation for this podcast, I talked to, my brothers. I got cousins that are definitely into the sports realm. And so I was asking them, like, what y'all think about Bronny? And I was shocked how everyone that I elicit information from was like, he's a strong player, but he's not NBA material. And low key, like, if LeBron James wasn't his dad, he probably wouldn't have got picked. And so I was kind of shocked at that a little bit. I'm like, well, geez Louise. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, not nepotism at play here, right? We got a little nepotism in the NBA. And normally I'm against nepotism because I feel like it doesn't benefit us black people. But in this case, I am all for the nepotism. Okay, power to the people. Shout out to Bronny. And it's so funny because the summer league started yesterday or 2 days ago, Jack.
Yesterday.
And after receiving all this information about Bronny, because I'm hyped, I'm loving the photos. I'm like, my guy about to cook. And in his game yesterday, did you see the play where he went to go for this like dunk? And if he would have made the dunk, it would have been crazy. However, uh the dunk didn't happen and he got blocked and Bronny kind of went down to the ground a little bit. But I'm still really excited for Bronny. What's your takes
Yeah.
on Bronny, Jack?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, right? I think with all the nepotism and whatnot, it's very easy to discredit Bronny. But if you know ball like I do,
Oh,
I think there's a lot of potential there, right? It is right. I'm living for the story, like seeing Bronny play with LeBron in the NBA is just an amazing thing. Anyone who's against that is crazy to me. Also, given I feel like LeBron's always been a great father to him. Given his situation as LeBron's son, it feels like from everything I've heard, he's a really like good kid. Like, and so that's a great thing. Like, if I was LeBron's son, I'd probably be an ass. So, that's great. But look, he wasn't great at USC. The easy knock against him is he only averaged about like 4.5 points per game, which is not a lot. But the way a lot of analysis that I've seen, especially from NBA vets, is like he's a 3-and-D player. Like he can knock down some shots and he'll play good defense and he'll facilitate.
oh,
Relax,
I
guys.
mean, wait, wait. I mean, if that's the case, I'm a 3-and-D player too, though. Like,
He can facilitate, and people forget. In high school, he coming out of high school was a McDonald's All-American. But before his season at USC, he had that heart condition that he had to get medically fixed. Coming back into college off recovering from a heart condition,
right.
you're not going to be playing your best ball right away. So, and I think he's got a lot of potential. He's also super athletic at the combine. He did super well. And I watched the game yesterday. He only had 4 points, but he had a lot of good looks that he facilitated for himself.
What was his average prior to
Well,
the
in
summer
college, he was
league?
like 4.5. Yesterday
Oh,
was the
so
first game of summer league. He had 4.
and
But
he's delivering.
yeah, he missed a lot of shots, but at the same time, it's shots that you think more like with time will go down. Like he's getting open looks, he's making looks for himself, finding some jumpers. I feel like the way he played yesterday, that'll usually translate to probably 8 points, 10 points or so, which for 55th overall pick in the summer league isn't too bad. So he's not going to come on the Lakers and immediately be a guy for them, but he has that potential, and he'll play a lot of games in the G League, which is like the developmental league this season, and it'll be fun. I don't think it's a bad pick by any means, though.
Right. No, I mean, I'm here for it. Now,
Yeah.
help me understand. The summer league is for the rookies that were drafted. They essentially play for their potential team, and it's like, like tournaments essentially.
So it's not just for rookies. It's basically for any young talent. So you might be a third-year player who hasn't gotten a lot of chance to shine in the NBA, but the team wants to get you some minutes to see if you're playing well. Or you might be a second-year player or whatever who's currently last season played the full season in the G League. And so the team it's basically giving young talent a chance to shine and see who's a standout.
So, what is the difference between the summer league and the G League? Because I am confused. When I saw that the summer league had started yesterday, I was like, "Oh, that's the G League," and my brother was like, "No, it's the summer
So
league." But then the G League players play in the summer league.
yeah, so once the NBA season starts, the G League starts as well and goes at the same time as the NBA season. Now, a lot of the summer league is like you get the rookies, you get basically any young talent, which is going to be a lot of the G League talent. But the summer league is its own thing. It's just a handful of games, whereas the G League goes during the same time as the NBA season, has its own championship.
Do
It's
the
more
rookies
games.
play in the G League during the season?
Some do and some don't. So, like, if you're the number 1 overall pick and you're a great like Victor Wembanyama, last year's first overall pick, great player. He played the full season with the Spurs, but other players who didn't quite make the roster they play in the G League so they have a chance to like develop, right? Because it would be only about 15 players make an NBA roster. And so it would be a shit. They wanted to have like a developmental league where, hey, this is a 19-year-old kid who's not ready for the league yet, but he might get there. He can go play in the G League. And then some players will have two-way contracts, a lot of the times younger guys, where they'll play games with the G League and they'll be like a starter. And then they'll also come up to the NBA and be like a bench warmer, but just to get them kind of familiarized with the league.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. So you get drafted to a team, so you don't make the starting roster, so you're in the G League. Are you still an NBA player?
Yes, like you're it's the teams are. I wouldn't say you're in the NBA, but you're like it's directly affiliated with the NBA, and a lot of people during the season will get pulled up from the G League to be on the
Okay.
roster. So
So that's my next question.
exactly.
So you could go during the season, you can go from the G League to the NBA.
Yep, and
Can it happen in reverse? Can you be on the NBA team and they sit you down to the G League?
I think they can. That's less common, I feel like, because once you get brought up to now, a lot of young players are on two-way contracts, like I said, which means that you're playing with both teams. But it doesn't really happen that someone who is like on the NBA roster gets put down to the G League. Because usually they're being paid a certain amount of money. So usually you'll just kind of get like released or traded to another NBA team. The only time people kind of go in between is those younger players who want to develop. But if you're like a 34-year-old NBA player who's struggling, they're not going to send you to the G League because then you're just kind of taking up a spot from
For new talent.
exactly.
Now, last question for the G League. If you only can play in the G League for 2 years, right? 2 consecutive seasons?
I think you could play in the G League. You could play in the G League for longer, I believe.
Okay. All
It
right.
might be for the well, no, summer league. No, I don't know. I don't know if there's like a set rule on that. But yeah, I love the summer league. Honestly, I like tuning into the summer league sometimes more than the regular
I,
season NBA because it's that young talent where this might be the next face of the league getting their first chance to shine, and you're sort of seeing the rise of these new personalities, these new players. And I just think it's better basketball because everyone's competing for like
right.
to
A
get there.
spot essentially,
A spot.
yeah.
Like when during the
Yeah.
regular season in the NBA, if they're not going 100%, but in the summer league, it's like this could be the difference between you making it to the league and you not making it to the league.
Working at Aldi's. Okay, come on, Jack, with the breakdown. All right, let's pull up Jack's pick here.
Yeah, Rob Dillingham.
Okay.
He's been funny because he played at Kentucky. He's a guard. It's just funny. All of his highlights on like TikTok and stuff. It's a running joke about how shifty he is. It's just and like because he's a great like ball handler.
Oh,
and,
okay. Come on,
and so
Rob.
he's quick, and so he plays very shifty. But it's like so shifty that he'll be like a video of him like walking to class and like man he's elusive like he's shifty. But what I thought was really interesting was he got drafted by the Spurs at 8, and they traded him to Minnesota for damn near just a bag of chips. Like they
Oh,
traded I believe it's a 2030 first round pick swap, and then a 2031 first round pick. But like the joke about that now, Bryce, is like 2031 first round pick. Those kids that are going to be drafted in 2031 are like 13 right now. So you're giving up a potentially really talented player for a current 13-year-old, which is just like a little bit ridiculous. So I think the Timberwolves really got a steal with Rob Dillingham. He's a really fun player to watch, and putting him alongside Anthony Edwards in the front or in the backcourt at the guard position is going to be, I think, a really fun thing to watch. So
okay. That's good that's crazy that like you can get drafted that night and be like, yes, let's go. And then literally 2 seconds later, like you got to
it
take your
happens a
hat
lot.
off and like that's crazy.
Happens a
It
lot.
the politics in the draft is that's just so crazy. And especially like if the first team that picked you is your number one team, like that's the team that she was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like you just get traded, which is crazy. Who else I got? Okay, now go to one of my picks. And this is one of my picks for multiple reasons. First of all, y'all know I'm a franchise player at the Charlotte Hornets. We've yet to take a championship home. And so we are building our young team. I feel like in the last 2 drafts, we have put some players around my baby daddy, the love of my life, LaMelo Ball. And I feel like we drafted, now mind you, I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's like Tajon Salton. I think he was the 6th overall draft pick. He's a power forward. He's from Paris. He averages about 9.7 points in his game. In his game in college, it's about 3.9 rebounds. He's definitely a powerhouse, and I really like just his energy. I think I was watching him play a little bit yesterday. And mind you, I'm doing a lot of different things, but I feel like they say some people is like magnetic energy on the court. I just like the way that he moves. I feel like he has like an air about him, and he's not that bad on the eyes. And so him with Melo is a good mix for myself.
Yeah, he got kind of the same curls that Melo does, honestly. So honestly, he's one of the people that I probably know the least about his game because he played overseas I think in the French league. And just from what I've heard, it's one of those classic things that he's got a lot of upside right now. Because number 6 was a little bit high for him based on where people were evaluating him. But he's apparently super athletic and just has a lot of upside. So it seems like the Hornets took a risk on him. Personally, I don't think a pick that I would have got, but I mean, what do I know? But
right.
Yeah, it's cool, and then it's so many French players getting drafted now too. I mean, in the top 10, the first 2 picks plus him were all French, which is pretty impressive. So
I ain't mad at it. Ooh la la, ooh wee wee. Who we got for Jack?
So we got Zach Edey, 2-time college player of the year at Purdue, 7'4" center.
Oh.
And the thing I think is interesting about him is, being such a tall center, he got a lot of easy buckets in college by virtue of his height. And that's the thing that in the past where someone like of his stature, a lot of times the game doesn't translate to the NBA because then you're going up against bigger guys, stronger guys that you're not going to be able to get those easy buckets. So a lot of people, for a long time, he was kind of projected as like a 2nd round pick. A lot of people having questions of like, does his game translate to the league? But it ends up, the Grizzlies end up taking up 9th overall, which is pretty high. But now I think there has been a little bit of a flip in the narrative that he's going to be a solid defender. He's going to get a lot of boards. So I'm just interested to see. I feel like no one else in this draft did I really see this narrative shift so much. And I thought 9 was a little bit high for him, but I also didn't think the 2nd round grade that people were giving him was warranted either. So I'm just really curious to see how he does and see if the kind of the classic story of like a dominant center in college where it doesn't necessarily translate. I feel like now centers are getting a little bit more, they have a little bit more finesse in their game, a little bit more touch. So I'm just curious to see what happens with Zach Edey.
What position do you play on the court, Jack?
It depends. Honestly, like I tend to consider myself like kind of a guard, but being my height, I'm usually the tallest on the floor, so I have to play more like power forward center. But when I'm really in my bag, I'm taking the ball up and making plays.
A triple D player or
3D?
Oh, 3D. Okay.
The 3 ball is not so good right now, but I'm getting to the cup, facilitating. I would say passing is the best part of my game. I got vision. So
what's your ball handle like?
It's solid.
Okay.
For someone of my height, I actually decent handle. Just tell
And
Jelinski and Wendell they don't want to see me on the court.
I mean, I've seen some video footage of Jelinski playing, and
Really.
I have, and let's just say I'm not sure Jelinski would make my G League team. And
Send me
your
that video.
I absolutely will. Your height is 6'5".
Like 6'6", yeah.
6'6". Okay. It's so crazy because my nephew, I talked to you about him as well. He is a sophomore going into his junior year, but he's going to reclass. And he is 6'5". And it's crazy because they are projecting him to potentially be like 7 foot. And so it's crazy
Yeah,
because I know some sports writers. He comes to a lot of our events. Josh, I forget his last name.
yeah,
Forgive me.
yeah.
Yeah, and so it's so crazy because he in our area that I'm in like the Philadelphia, the tri-state area, he is very big on like high school players and stuff. And so at one of our events, I was talking to him about my nephew, and so my sister and her husband used to play basketball in high school and in college, and so he was supposed to go pro but he didn't, and so like now his pet project is like literally my nephew, and so like all the time that's all my nephew's doing, and so obviously that's my nephew, so I mean
Yeah.
he it. And so we always talk highly of him. But it was funny talking with Josh at one of the events, and I was telling him, like, hey, like, my nephew plays and he's like pretty good and he's tall. And he was like, what's your nephew's name? And I was like, Peyton McClendon. And he was like, he said his high school. He was like, he's ranked 14 in the state of Pennsylvania. And I was like, he was just listing all of these stats
Wow.
about my nephew. And I obviously, like, take him seriously, but it was just so crazy just hearing it from someone else. And it was
Yeah.
funny. I like connected him with my family, and he has like my nephew in some like summer camps and stuff. So it's just crazy because again, I love these drafts, but it's also kind of like crazy to me to think that like there is a potential that
Your nephew
my
could
nephew
be in the
really
mix.
could be going into the draft, and y'all can best believe Uncle Brice gonna be up in there like, but okay. So let me get to my pick, and mind you, now this pick,
Woo.
Kyle Flipakowski, Bang Bang. I don't really know nothing about him, but the TikToks have been telling me I need to know about him. He was drafted to the Utah Jazz. I want to say, what was he, the
The
23rd?
U-Haul Jazz.
What I say, Utah?
You say U-Haul. You corrected yourself. You corrected yourself. But it was funny. He's the U-Haul Jazz.
So he was he the 32nd or the
32.
32 draft pick. However, according to a lot of Jack's, Jack's been talking about the projected people getting drafted at 9 supposed to be lower.
Mhm.
According to his stats, he was projected to be in like the top 10. It's a really great player. However, this is where I come in at. It is the story surrounding him has gotten a lot of headlines and not in the most positive way. And essentially it has affected his draft pick. So essentially, Kyle, when he was younger, allegedly his older cousin, and I want to say she's older by like 7 to 8 years. All I know is when Kyle was still in high school, said cousin slash babysitter had graduated college
Yeah,
and had her.
I don't think it's a cousin.
You got to get to the new TikToks because they're pulling up photos of her and him when they were younger. And the caption that she is captioning is with my cousins.
Okay.
Allegedly, this is all allegedly. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want
I
nothing.
know it was at least a babysitter, but okay.
So at least a babysitter, and there is a sparse age gap. And when she graduated undergrad, went back for her master's, Kyle was like in the 9th grade. Now she has graduated from cousin to babysitter to girlfriend, and they are madly in love. The family does not approve of it. Kyle does not speak to his family, and here's the one thing that I don't like, because I definitely feel like it's a double standard. I feel like if the roles were reversed, if like it was an older man with a younger woman, I don't think it would be so sensationalized as it is. And they're also saying that essentially, like, the girlfriend is like not having Kyle, like she has excommunicated Kyle from his family, and like she's the reason why Kyle's not talking to his family. I don't like that. We don't know the insides and outs about that. Like, but she definitely was at the draft, and Kyle definitely was drafted. But that is allegedly the reason why his draft number was so low, because a lot of teams were a little nervous about this. But despite all of that, the boy got some ball handles, right? Like, I was like watching clips of him, and I don't maybe know all what I should be looking for when somebody is playing, but I also feel like highlights are misleading, right? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it's important to watch somebody's highlight clips, but also it's like they highlight clips. So it's like they're only showing you their very best of the best of the best. But Kyle's highlight clips is nasty. Like, Kyle can move and shake. And it's just really interesting that his draft is really being overshadowed by this relationship with the girlfriend. And not only that, like, and it's not really speculation about the age difference and him not speaking to his family, because his mother and brother are out speaking to the press, confirming these accusations.
Yeah. I didn't know that there was any actual cousin. I knew it was at least his babysitter. I think he's like 19, she's like 27, and they've been dating for a few years.
Kentucky.
So it's definitely a little bit weird. I heard there was some connection to like the church, like the Mormon church.
The Mormon church or something, yeah.
Ironically, he gets drafted to Utah, which genuinely might. Yeah, I guess makes
the
sense.
Mormon church is heavy in Utah.
Exactly. So it's like maybe the Jazz are like he'll fit in here. Everyone dates their cousin around. But yeah, he could definitely play. So I do think usually I would say the personal life and basketball don't have to mix too much, but at the same time, I will say, like, it seems like to some degree teams probably are worried that it could be a distraction, and so that's probably why he slipped a little bit. But he's definitely a really talented player. So, but it is just an interesting drama. Like, I would watch a show about how that all went down. So.
I am waiting for the Netflix documentary or the Lifetime or Tubi of this, because it's so interesting. And it's just crazy because if you don't know the story, and again, I was like pulling clips last night because when I can't sleep, I'm on the TikTok, and it's just crazy, like watching the draft when he gets drafted. And of course, they're saying the girlfriend is like, she has him not speaking to his family and stuff. But it's really interesting when he gets drafted, like the first person obviously he turns to is he turns and kisses her. But it is like a weird and interesting, I don't know, like sis looked like bag secured. So I don't know. It's interesting, but if it's drama, I'm here for it and I love it. But again, Kyle can play. And so interesting to see how he will do. Did you see any of his clips in the start of the summer league yesterday? I didn't see.
I don't think they played yesterday.
Okay.
The Jazz had a good draft though, unrelated to like everything we're talking about. But they got him. They got Isaiah Collier. They got Cody Williams. It's a good trio right there.
When's the last time the U-Haul Jazz has won a championship? Has the franchise won a championship?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I know, like, obviously the best era they had was Malone and Stockton, and they never won a champion. They're like the best duo to essentially never win a championship. So I don't know if they won outside of that, but the Jazz have always been, like, I feel like pretty decent, but they haven't been like dominant.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe Kyle and his cousin got just the trick for him. Now, also, so my friend Sarah, I believe you met her before, Jack. She is one of my best friends. She is a sports fanatic. Like, she loves sports. She has the ESPN notifications on her phone. Like, she don't play. And so obviously she knows of you, hears a lot about you. And when Jack and I were creating lists, I was telling her about this. It was so funny because the next person that Jack has, my friend Sarah, predicted that it would either be on Jack's list or this is someone that Jack would like. And so Jack's pick that Sarah was right
Yup.
is old homeboy. Jack has a thing with picking players that kind of resemble him a little bit.
Sure.
And I feel like my friend Sarah was like, I don't really know nothing about it's Mateo or what's his name?
Matas.
Matis. She was like, I just know he looks like Jack, and I feel like Jack would like him. And so, Sarah, you was right.
Yeah, I'll own it because I think it comes from a place of just watching a fella like me get some buckets in the league.
I'm dead.
But yeah, it's just he's no, you're right. It's like that's why I love Chet Holmgren because it almost feels like if I was just way better, then that's what I'd look like out on the floor. Also 4 to 6 inches taller, I guess. But yeah, he's a bucket getter. He really athletic. I think he's like 6'10", good ball handle, can throw down.
Okay.
I think apparently his shooting needs to get a little bit better, but that's just a scouting report. But what I liked about him recently too is he sort of has like a swag to it. He's also from Chicago, so he's staying with the hometown Bulls. But he has kind of a swag to him. There was an interview that someone did with him asking him who he'd like want to play 1v1. And I forget who he called out, but he called someone out and he's like, they can't guard me. Like they don't want to see me. So
I got a little Jelinski in them.
Yeah, he's like, I told them I'll play them 1v1 whenever they want, and they haven't accepted it because they know they don't want to see me. And then it was like, damn, like he's talking his shit. So I like it, man. And I'm also, a Chicago guy. I like the Bulls. Not my favorite team, but one of my favorite teams. So I'm just excited to go watch him hoop in Chicago and stay in the hometown.
Okay, come on, Chicago. We out here. Mattis. Is Mattis or Mateus?
I think it's Matas. Yeah.
Matis. Okay. Matis. Matis. Okay, let me get to one of my picks. One of my picks is AJ Johnson, my guy. Okay, you talk about swag, you talk about honor, you talk about stand up. I took a liking to AJ after the draft, and a lot of the reports were happening, and it was really interesting because he played with the Australian basketball league, but he was the 23rd pick in the NBA draft. The move was a shocking one, given that Johnson had been projected to land in the late first or early second round. In addition to this, and I would love to ask you a little bit more questions about this, Jack. He was not invited to the green room during the draft. However, AJ still, I don't know. Do you have to, people purchase tickets to go to the draft?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I did see this that he sat in the front row with his family and then came
not
down.
in the front row. It wasn't the front row. They was up. Like
I saw it was the front row, but
it wasn't the front row. He was up
like
there,
front row in the stands. Like he wasn't front row in the draft. He was in the
Yeah.
stands, but at the front, I think.
Well, I
But he had to
mean,
come down. He had to like walk.
he had
down
to come down to the steps.
Yeah.
Like they weren't expecting him to get drafted, or at least it wouldn't be one that was televised. It would be like a trade or something, like you were saying.
Yeah. Well, they do.
Yeah.
So the first round, they do. The first round is that's where they invite people to come. But then the second round, they don't do it like live. They just kind of announce them. So that's yeah.
And so that was the thing where they didn't expect him to be a first round pick or very late in the first round. However, this is what I like about AJ was that, like he said, this regardless of wherever I'm picked, my family flew in, and also very Black family, because it was giving Black family at a graduation, when they call your name Jack Atkins, woo, with the boar horn and stuff. Like his family was hyped. And just something about this story that you weren't invited to the green room, you're not projected to go, but you still, like, your family is there. You have that honor, you have that pride. From what I've seen in a lot of his write-ups, he's not the best player. He has a lot of potential. And I just feel like that's so hard to quantify sometimes in basketball, right? Where it's like they're literally saying like you're not great, but you're not living up, or you haven't reach your highest potential yet. And so it's like they definitely see him as a long-term player and someone that's like that has the A's and the B's, right? Not the 3Ds, but or maybe the same coming from the wrong direction. He got some C's, not the 3Ds. But again, just I don't know. It's something about this story. And again, just watching him, and I mean, also he ain't that bad on the eyes, AJ. We not cousins. I'm John's son. He's John's son. Just to make that clear. But I don't know. It's just something about that story. For me, that says a lot about a person. And so
Yeah.
automatically I'm putting AJ high on my list.
Yeah. No, I knew probably like I didn't know a lot about him coming into today, but I did some research. I just remember hearing about him because people the counter argument of people being like, oh, Bronny only averaged 4.5 points in college. AJ Johnson averaged 2.9 and got picked 23rd. Granted, now he was in Australia. I actually think he played for the same squad that LaMelo played for a year, the Illawarra Hawks or whatever.
I don't know about
But he was
that.
probably not getting as many minutes because the Australian league, like there's grown men in there. He's 19. I think he's a guard and he's like 6'5", super athletic, and apparently he had a really good combine and showed out against all the other prospects. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's always a interesting dilemma to me during the draft is like, do you go with like those younger, like more raw prospects that could develop to be someone really, really great, or also be a complete bust? Or do you go with maybe someone a little bit older, but who that can get some buckets, but they might not be the most athletic. They might not be like this and that. It's always an interesting dilemma. But yeah, I actually wonder. I wonder if like a team like the Bucks that took him maybe called him and said like, hey, if you're there at the end of the first round, we're gonna pick you. Because obviously with that knowledge, he's being more likely to pull up to the draft knowing that you are going to get picked.
Right.
But it's always interesting with the green room situation. Like some people get invited and then they don't get picked.
And they don't, right.
Some people don't get invited and then they get picked.
And then you're not there. And
exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go to the green room. Like because if I didn't get picked, I'd be pissed.
Kyle Filipowski was there and he didn't get picked till the second round. And then some players just do it where they host it at their house and have a party there. That might be the most fun, honestly. Although to walk across the stage would be pretty cool when you get drafted. So.
But also sometimes people will host it at their house and then they'll have the news crew there as well. I don't want the news crew there either because if I don't get picked, then take your side. What's up? But I like AJ. He definitely got to follow, and I definitely will be following. And I like the Milwaukee Bucks. I feel like when I was in high school, I forget what their big starting three was back in the day. I should know, but I always liked the Milwaukee Bucks, and I felt,
yeah,
I'm just with it. I'm with it. All right, who you got, Jackery?
Yeah, Dalton Connect. See, when you were saying that Sarah called who I was going to have on my squad, I was like, is it going to be Dolan or Montes? But no, he's so, living in LA. I'm not necessarily a Lakers fan, but I think I like when the Lakers are doing well just because it makes the city more fun. There's more conversation. Dalton Connect was the SEC Player of the Year, but he was projected to be really a top 7 to 10 pick in the draft, and he fell all the way to 17 to the Lakers. And he's just a great player, 3-level scorer, super athletic. You watch some of his highlights, you're going to see him dunking on people and hitting step back threes. I guess he slipped because he is 23, which in the draft people consider to be a little bit old. But I think he could really do some great things with the Lakers. Also playing with Bronny is a really fun duo to watch. And then speaking of like good stories, he's got a great story. I mean, the reason he's 23, so I think he played his first year. Coming out of high school, he had no D1 offers. So he played a couple years at JUCO, junior college, and then he transferred to like a small
is that an actual college or we just call it
junior
JUCO?
College is like it's almost like community college.
I mean, I know, but was it a specific college that's called JUCO or we just say JUCO?
No, JUCO is like short for junior college.
Oh, okay.
So he played like a year or two at a junior college. Then he played a couple of years at like other small D1 school, and then I think he transferred around. Finally, he transferred to Tennessee last year and came out of nowhere and won SEC Player of the Year. So he went from having no offers coming out of high school to killing it in the D1 in the SEC. and getting drafted, which I think is a really cool story.
Yeah, I love that even more because sometimes it's like you gotta wait for your time is your time. And it's not the time that we always want it to be. Sometimes we want it now. And shout out to him for, going to JUCO, taking a step back, getting the
Yeah.
3Ds to connect. And now
And
listen, that now we here.
I just think
Um,
it's a testament to just, having belief in yourself and working hard and just separating yourself from the rest. But also he's wearing number 4, so Connect 4 is a
oh,
pretty fun
that
nickname.
I
So
like
yeah.
that. All right, who I got? Okay, I got my baby, Jared McCain. He's from Duke. I've actually seen Jared play. They played against Villanova, and I got to see that game. And I liked Jared just from the get-go. And he was drafted, I believe, is it number 6 to the
Uh,
Philadelphia
it was either
76ers?
15 or 16.
15 or 16. Here I go hyping him up. 15 or 16. He is definitely a solid player. I think what I like more about Jared, besides really what his basketball capabilities are, is that Jared in the D League when he was playing for Duke, he caught a lot of headlines. I don't know why people love to like question people's sexuality. It's like a thing. If you don't fit the heterosexual normity, then all of a sudden it's like, is he gay? And it kind of creates this whirlwind that I felt like followed him at Duke. Jared gets his nails painted. He loves wearing his nails painted. What's wrong with that? Okay, he got a little fashion, a little style, and so he caught a lot of slack for that. People were, insinuating about his sexuality. What does it matter if he could ball? And what I loved about Jared was one, he didn't give an F about what people said about his nail colors. He switched his nail color up every game. He actually, I want to say, inked a multi-million dollar deal with a nail polish company. So he has his own nail polish and he coming home to the
Yep.
Philly 76ers. And I mean, I don't have a type. People say I have a type, but I don't. But I mean, Jared don't look that bad on my eyes. And no matter which way he want to go, I'll be right here waiting for him. Okay, whatever he need, I can show him around the city. And it's funny because there is a sports complex that Wendell used to be a member of, and I want to say maybe like 2 summers ago. He would go there and like have to kind of shoot content, but obviously would go to work out. And I would go faithfully with him in the summertime because it is right near our practice quarters for our Philadelphia G League squad. So I would be hyped to go to, make myself useful, volunteer my mind, body, and soul as tribute, just to show the players around. And so I'm excited that Jared is here. Again, kind of like, hometown, not really hometown, but really great to have him. Looking at some of his highlights, I think that he's a great player. But again, I feel like highlights are a little like skewed because you're only seeing the best things of them. But I love Jared's story. And Mello, watch out.
Yeah, no, Jared McCain's great. So he's also, I mean, part of the reason he caught all his attention, he's had a big TikTok following for several years, even back in high school. And so it's just sort of been like one of those things where you watch this player grow up, and all of a sudden now he's going to the NBA.
But I ain't
Which is
babysit him
super
now.
cool.
So just
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, and it's yeah, he's very like Gen Z. I mean, just completely himself. Has a TikTok following, hitting some dances, painting his nails. But I feel like every time I see him, he's always having fun. He's a great player, and he's
right.
just being himself. So it's like, how do you not like that? So I'm excited. He just adds that personality to the league that we love. Like it's the same kind of with like LaMelo, like you said, where he comes in the league, he already has this brand and this
Right.
personality and like a story and a background, and it adds characters to the league, I think. And also with the 76ers, they just added Paul George. They've got a pretty strong looking squad,
You
and
gotta
I think
trust the
they're
process. Are you trusting the
I still don't
process,
know if
Jack?
it's going to be, but it'll definitely be a fun team to follow with all these moving pieces, including Jared McCain.
Shout out to Jared. And for our final pick, Jack, you did right by this one.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon Jr. Like I said, the Wolves had a great draft. They traded for Rob Dillingham. And then they also scooped out Terrence Shannon Jr. I think it was early in the second round. But I just think another really interesting story, a little bit dark, but he was proven innocent after being accused of sexual assault. It was proven that like the girl was trying to set him up and get a bag essentially. And so he had slipped obviously a lot of draft boards because had it been true, he's not going to get drafted. It's going to ruin his career, ruin his future. But luckily, they proved him innocent, correctly, obviously, hopefully. But there was some pretty damning evidence, is why I say that. But he was a bucket at Illinois, one of the best offensive players in the whole nation. Just a great player, and I love that. Someone tried to drag him down and it all shook out, and now he's going to go, play in the league.
Yeah. It's crazy because watching some of his clips, showboat isn't the word that I want to use, but in a lot of his highlights and a lot of the clips that I saw, he was a very entertaining player, like big moves, dunks, like just like you talk about swag, like he definitely has a persona on the court. And so I ain't mad at that pick at all, Jackery. Not at all.
Yeah. But yeah, him and Rob in Minnesota is going to be a really interesting duo, I think.
And that's the Timberwolves, right?
Yeah, and they already got a really great squad, so it's if those two play well, then they're going to be real dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, we are in for a treat this NBA season coming up this fall. And I think the rookies this year are top tier. I'm super happy with it. I can't thank Jack enough for coming back on the play-by-play. The Olympics is starting. And so the posse, you think there's anything else that Jack and I should be covering? We are keeping our ears to the street in the WNBA. So any big news on that, we'll definitely be back. But thanks again, Jack, for coming on the Purple Pants Play-by-Play and, covering the 3Ds with me. It ain't easy. I can't do it by myself.
Of course. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was great. In this draft, I kind of meant to say it was such an interesting draft because there was not a really well-defined top level of talent. And so a lot of people could have really gone, anywhere in that top 10. And people kind of consider it to be one of the weaker draft classes in a while because they don't have those immediate standouts. But I think there's a lot of different fun players. I also feel like it was a pretty deep draft with some good second round talent. So it'll just be exciting to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our ears to the streets and our balls in the net. This has been your Purple Pants Play-by-Play Draft 24.
Ooh, it's the Purple Pants Podcast. You better listen in public, might make your stomach hurt. Ooh, it's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to unwind, you better get that box wine. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to get your snack, you better hurry right back though. It's the Purple Pants. It's the Purple Pants.